The next stage I have to do for this pulling wires in business, now that I've got this all sort of sorted, I'm making one change, but we'll get to that later, is I've got to run the network cables, and I have to put a gray conduit, large conduit around these these wires, the thick 16 millimeter wires, and they have to go all the way down into the main panel that's at the front door. So the idea is I'm going to have these larger conduits, so there'll be 10 of them, I believe, maybe 9, I can't remember exactly right now. One of them will be for all the Cat6 internet cable, Ethernet cable. And we're going to put like 10 or 15 or something in that. And then there'll be one for lights, which is going to have like one circuit in it. And there'll be one for sockets, which is like 2 circuits. So this front panel at the front of the house really is just going to be for hooking up to most of the other panels and having the internet and all that sort of stuff in there. And then there'll be like 3 big breaker things, like disconnector things that shut off all the other panels. What I'm going to be doing with the networking is once it leaves the floor below me, which is at the front door, I'm going to be putting these up against the wall, and basically what they are little conduit things that go on the wall. Because this is going to be Sam's office, I'm right above, and that'll be my office. We're just going to stick them, on the other side of this, on the wall, and you'll never see them. We're not going to be too fussy about the offices, making it look pretty. And then they're just going to run up and I'll put all those cables into the Cat6s up there, cut a hole, go up again, cut a hole right into the attic. And then the attic will help spread around all the cables to other things. So we're going to have one going to the garage, which is then going to feed the one that goes to the greenhouse. And then we're going to have one that goes to the living room. Actually, not the living room. We're going to do the one with the kitchen. And then we're going to have one in the den, and we're going to have one in the sunroom. And then every bedroom has to have one. So we're just kind of lucky that like there's a bedroom here, there's a bedroom here, there's a bedroom here, there's a bedroom here. So just by that, with the 2 offices, that sort of takes care of 6 out of the 15 right there. And I don't have to do anything really but just drill through and basically put a socket in the wall. I'm going to do it on this side and on that side. It's kind of a semi-logical place if you had a computer, like a kid or something like that. But I'm doing them anyways. I don't want to be spending my days running cables around to where I think the computer, because we're never going to have computers in there. It's more just to be in with the norms. We'll do that, and then I got to run one over there, run above it, and then one on at the top floor where the games room will be. And then that's about it. So it's just a matter of getting them all run to the right locations at this point. And then we kind of have an idea of how much we have going. And then I'm going to switch, because I'm still waiting on some wires, to wiring up and installing the GTLs, which is like a bigger version of that trunking. It's about this wide, 60 centimeters. And you run all your wires up into it or down into it, and then you put all your breaker boards behind that. So afterwards you can pop the panels off and you can see where all the wires are. If you want to run something in or out, you do it with this and you just put the cover back on and it's all set. I won't be doing a GTL in the pool room because it's kind of like, it's not that much in there except for a couple air conditioners and the pool pump and maybe some lights for the garage or the greenhouse or whatever. So I won't need it in there, but I'm going to be doing one in what will be a laundry room, which is behind, and then one in the top where I put in the water heater. There'll be another GTL in there. And I already have the GTL sort of set up in the front, in the doorway. I'm going to make some changes to that. I need a little more space. I got the hole a little bit different and all sorts of drilling and fastening you got to make it really, really tidy in there. But anyways, let's get to doing this. First thing I have to do is, because I'm having more conduit than I originally thought here, I've got to make the hole that comes up into the ceiling and then into this hole here a bit bigger. So let's do that, and then we can get going. Oh, and just in case you wonder what dropped out, basically these plastic things, you take them off and you basically clip them in. And I don't know if it's to hold the wires back or maybe a little more structure, but yeah, they're in. All right, well, the next part of this project is going to be me running the 60 by 40 conduits up. I'm going to be doing in these rooms, which is my office and Sam's office. I'll be doing in some of the cupboards. And the idea is that I'm going to be fishing up the internet wires into this, running up through the ceiling, into the next one, then up and then into the attic, and then spreading out towards the house from there. A lot of them are going to be in this section. There's, I think, 6 right here, which is good. Maybe, yeah. And then just the rest of them will be in the bedrooms that are right here. So yeah, what I've got to do is I've got to cut this baseboard out. Just take a little section out, and then I got to drill these in every half a meter. Yeah, let's see how it works. Well, good morning. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going to start our first GTO. What it means in French, the words I can never remember, but basically it's a zone that you keep protected basically with plastic, and you have to keep it a certain distance from water, and you can't put things in front of it. You have to have access to it, and the idea is you run on this wall. You have these kind of plastic trunking things. So there's a cover for this side and a cover for this side. And then depending on what type you get, we have different slots. So in my case, for this room, we're going to use this for the heavy duty, high power, like crazy amp stuff that's coming from the pool room and the front of the house and all of the solar panels and all that stuff. The big heavy ones go through this side, and then it runs the top. And you put your breaker board, which is one of these guys, basically. You can see that. That goes on the front of it, sits on the front like this, and then you run this from the ground floor up to the ceiling. And then this section here, you run all your other cables. So you have the conduit, which is like a plastic casing that goes around all the cable. And if you're passing through a wall, you have to have it no matter what. Even if it's shielded, you have to have it on there. And then you run it in, and then as it comes up, in a lot of these conduits, you just have raw wires. So you'll have like 3 wires. You have a ground and a neutral and a live, right? And so those will come up, and then you basically bundle them up all together, and then you spread them out at the back, putting the ground at the back, and neutral in the middle, and then the live in the front, and that wraps into all your breakers that sit in the side of this thing. I'm not giving you a complete lesson on it, but basically there's a lot of rules in France about keeping 3 things in mind. So there's mechanical, so you've got to basically make sure that nothing can cut the wires as much as possible. So you put trunking on it, or you use armored cable. And if you look at this is the big armored cable that I was pulling. It's really heavy. It's like 5 wires in it, and it's 16 millimeter wires. And basically, the idea is you have to mechanically protect it. So even though they have this when it goes through a wall, you should have more mechanical protection on it, etc. If you're going to plaster over it, you've got to have it inside of a conduit. And these conduits should always be at least 1/3 empty. There are some kind of quiet exceptions. So if you're passing directly through and you're just running one wire, you don't have to have exactly this, 1/3 of it empty kind of thing. But what you wouldn't want to do is you wouldn't want to run it through a wall and then have it all jam-packed in there. So there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of weird stuff you have to do in France. Not really weird. I understand it. Just related to making sure no one can damage the wires, which is cool. I don't mind that. The other thing you have to worry about is heat. So heating, especially a big wire like this one will never heat up. You'd have to have like I don't know what you'd have, but a huge amount of power to be able to get something this big to warm up and actually melt, which is why it feeds all our boxes and goes from the from the battery in the back of the pool room to the front of the house. Like this is just, we'll never have an issue with it. But other wires, you've got to make sure that you don't bundle them too close together, which is why you have that 1/3 that's empty. You need some like airflow and let it out to cool. The next thing is you've got to worry about interference. So if you're running networking cables like Cat6 or something like that, you've got to keep a distance apart from anything that's electrical, especially big heavy duty wires like this, because they put out like electronic fields around there and stuff like that. So you don't want to have them right near your home network, because it'll make the network not as good. You could get interference and it just kind of makes it slower. So you want to have a distance. Now, because of the way that the math works, basically, you don't have to have much. You just got to have like about a thumb width, maybe 2 thumb widths, and you'd be fine. So it's not crazy. You just got to keep all these little things in mind as you're passing things through like I'm passing things through the floorboards, I'm passing things up through walls, I'm cutting trenches in walls. So there's a lot to think about with those 3 things. And then the idea is, even with this one, so on the front board downstairs, the main panel, I actually had to buy a piece of plastic to go in this. So I have a section here for The networking, I have a section here that I'm going to use for the really big heavy cables, because they're not having a lot of smaller cables down there. It's not going to feed a lot of rooms. It's going to do like 2 or 3 rooms, so they'll all fit in this. And then all the big cables, which I think there's 6 of them in there, are going to go in this. And they're all going to get split up as they come through and then separated and divided and all sorts of stuff. So it's quite a complicated thing. I wouldn't recommend doing it unless you've been taught what to do. Once again, I've been talking to an electrician. I've also read a lot of books and internet stuff, so I know. Don't tackle this at home. It's not just like, you know, sticking stuff together. I don't know. I find it quite difficult, not to fully understand, but just to kind of plan it all out, especially in a house this big, you know, with 7 bedrooms and solar panels and a battery and all this sort of stuff. You got to think about all these things and what crosses over and what's protected. So anyways, what I'm doing today is I'm going to install this and put the panel on. And then I'm just going to kind of leave the wire hanging out for now. And then I'm also going to do a little teeny, this may be a little bit of overkill, but I have this trunking, which is visible. I'm going to put this wire, which is this wire and the ground wire here. Got one right here. A little bit of conduit over it, mostly just to kind of tidy it up. In France, when you get your house inspected, because they can't see everything, one of the little tricks they do is they look at how tidy everything is. So if you have wires coming in the back and they're all big spaghetti mess, even if it's all done right, which it can't be because they've got to be tidy, you've got to be able to look in the back of your box when you pull the thing off and logically be able to see where everything's going. But that gives them a big flag. So if you have wires hanging out, if they're not done right, if they can see anything that's wrong, they won't pass you and they'll make you fix it. So, and every time they come visit, it's like another 200 euros. So it could get pretty expensive if you just kind of keep trying, right? So I'm going to encase this little guy here. And once again, it's the rule that it's got to be a third empty. This was going to be way more than a third empty. There's just this ground and this wire together. So I'm going to attach that to the wall with some little anchors. I'm not going to bother. You can do these little clippy things. So they're like clips, got a hole in them, and you drill through them. Or not drill, but you put a screw in them with an anchor, and then you can put a zip tie through it, and then you would tie your cables like that. And that stops and keeps everything in nice kind of lines up and down. So I'm not gonna, I might put 1 or 2 in for this one, because I'm putting screws in anyways, but yeah, there's no real need. You just gotta make sure that you don't have any stress on the wires. That's the idea. They gotta be, but you don't want them too tight so you're squishing them. Yeah, it's quite complicated. But anyways, let's get to putting this in. I'm going to be doing a whole lot of this over the next few days. I've got to do this. I've got to redo the entire front board, not the whole board, but a big portion of it. And I've got to do 3 of these GTLs and 3 more panels. That's kind of my goal for this project. How much I get done, we'll see. But yeah, it's not really difficult at this point. It's just, you got to be thoughtful about where everything comes in and out and stuff like that. Anyways, let's get to it.